Recyard every Wednesday night. Hey, everyone. I am Marci Marie.
And I'm Toonche.
We are On The Recyard, Women's Prison Podcast, and we're so happy to see y'all. We're already seeing folks in the chat. Welcome. We see you. Roxanne was the first to arrive. She was an early bird tonight, Toonche.
I love it.
Yeah, we are talking about quite possibly the most publicized case of Munchausen by proxy syndrome. We are talking about Gypsy Rose Blanchard tonight.
It's a big one. It's been all over the news. And who better to talk about a woman getting out of prison than us?
Right. Two chicks that happen to have gotten out of prison. Absolutely. Before we do that, hey, Toonche, let's do a weekly recap. I don't even know what there is to recap, girl. we survived the holidays.
We did. Tell everybody what you did for the holidays.
Well, my son and his boyfriend, who they've been together for quite a while. They got together years before I got released from prison. So they came up, and normally for the holidays, they each go to their own family, but we got to enjoy them both this year. So that was really wonderful. Grandsons, lots of presence and family and beautiful time with the family, but also a little bit of stress and anxiety that come with that. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it like we had this Hallmark picturesque holiday, because my anxiety was pretty high. And New Year's Day, I mean, my birthday was in there. Guys, yeah. I'm 45. How the heck 45? Did that happen?
Wait a minute. Hold on. You're 45? You're older than I am. Yeah, that's right. You're older.
Isn't that peculiar that I'm older than you and I look so much better? Why?
Beauty is the eye of the beholder. So let's not go down that road, Marci.
Okay,
no, you are far better.
Let's not, because I don't need all these chicks out here coming for me.
And then it'll be, you already like, oh boy, here's another one that says Toonche is adorable.
Yeah, I can't handle that. I can't mentally handle that. So can I recant that statement?
It's too late. It's too late.
It's out there. It's out there into the abyss. Yeah. So between like the big family Christmas gathering, and then Christmas Eve with my wife's family, and then Christmas Day with my family, which is our smaller family, but I have 5 children, guys. So it's still quite an event. And then my birthday dinner. And then by New Year's Day, my parents came over and we cooked the traditional New Year's meal, which I was kind of pessimistic about, because I'm kind of leaning towards, hey, somebody just said this is the new year. The new year's actually in the spring. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, this is the new calendar year, but actually the Mother Nature says the new year is in the spring, and that's when we should be like. Anyway, so I kind of had that attitude about it. And then my anxiety was high. Y'all, I wanted to fry some pickles because I was craving them. Okay. And so I had my little pickles out and had everything ready. And the first couple that I put in the grease, they didn't turn out right. And I just gathered everything up and went to the trash can with it. My grandmother said, well, where did the pickles go? And I said, grandmother, I threw them away. Well, why did you do that? I said, because I didn't want to deal with them anymore. Well, couldn't we have saved them? Yes, grandmother, we could have. But in my moment of me throwing a fit on New Year's Day, that was not an option. So anyways, with all of that, I am happy. I am happy that I had very good memories during that craziness of events, birthday, Christmas, New Year's, all of that, and happy that it's over at the same time.
Yeah, it's a lot of socializing, and I wasn't feeling well at the beginning. I do want to just say I see you throwing the pickles away in a very borderline personality disordered moment of, oh, just throw it all in the trash.
Yes.
It didn't go well. It didn't go right. Just throw it all away. We're done. So I found some humor in that. I hope you eventually did too. Poor pickles. Grandmother was like, "What happened to the pickles?" They're gone.
Yes.
Like
They're
the fish, they're gone. It's
they're
over.
gone. It's it's done, and I did acknowledge that it was a BPD moment afterwards, that all or nothing
Oh,
way of
yeah.
thinking, that emotion that can take us over so easily, so I will say that for sure.
Yeah, let's see. What did I do? I wasn't feeling well, so for Christmas, me and the cat were just here. You can see my Bucky that I bought at Bucky's when I was with Lori coming back from your wedding. And I saw Alexa, after Christmas, and she lives in Texarkana, which I just busted her out where she lives. And she's like, "Thank you," because she's so private. She got me
Alexa
this.
is Let me tell the people who is Alexa. Alexa,
Oh,
you
okay.
did time with Alexa, quite a bit of time,
Mhm.
and
Yes,
she's
20
also a
years.
member of Lioness. You did 20 years. You
Yes.
did the whole time with Alexa?
No, I
No.
she did her whole 20 year, well, she did 19 and a half at Mountain
So
View.
she did not, but you guys were friends, and she got you a good gift. Let me see that.
Hold on, I love it so
She's so
much. I love it.
precious. Alexa is also on the steering committee for Lioness, Justice Impacted Women's Alliance.
It's a
Does it
burn
say?
book from the
Oh,
burn
it is
book
a
from
burn
Mean
book.
Girls. I
I
love me some
love
Mean
it.
Girls. It's a whole thing.
I
We all love
love
Mean
that.
Girls. And of course, we've all been accused of being mean girls. And I'll claim that narrative just because it's fun. But it is one of my favorite movies. It's hilarious, and we can all quote it to each other all the time. She's like, "Look, I got you this," and I got her a purse with a skull on it with a what do they call them? Sugar skulls. So that was fun to see her, and then I went to see my parents, and I saw another friend. We went hiking, and so it was nice. It was quiet, but it was nice. And I will be seeing Diane. She's home sort of for the holidays, so she comes to see her family once a year. So I'll be going to see her. We'll probably all be having coffee at our little favorite coffee shop, hopefully in Dallas. So I've got her
Yeah,
little present to give her, and your birthday
that's
present,
amazing.
I'm sorry, is not coming until Saturday. I can't believe Amazon just
That's okay.
screwed this
That's
off. I
that's
really, and I
okay.
remembered.
You did remember. I was really
I
proud of
did.
you. I had messages from you early that morning on my birthday, and I appreciate that so much. And I appreciate everybody on our online community, members of our show community, and then on my other social platforms for sending me all the birthday love. You guys all made me feel very special, and I don't know. I think before my incarceration, birthdays weren't that big of a deal to me. And then in
Mhm.
prison, we have so little. That's one way that we were able to celebrate one another was birthdays. And I'm glad that I didn't come back home with this kind of ho hum thing about my birthday. Like I'm happy. It's okay to celebrate ourselves and
Mhm.
the fact that we're here and surviving, and the people that hopefully we're growing to be more of the people that we wanna be, right? And I just
Right.
yeah, so I'm happy for that. I'm really happy for that. So, holidays are
Wait,
over. Yeah.
wait, before I need to let everyone know what I got myself for Christmas. It's
What did
on
you
my
what
head.
Oh, I see a Kansas City hat. And that's pretty brave for a girl living in Austin to be sporting this Kansas City hat. Uh, and, The Lion King, my wife is not gonna be very happy with you, Toonch.
I know, but I know bros before hoes. I get it. And I do embrace that, but I can't. Taylor is, I'm sorry. I mean, it is what it is. So it will ride it out till as long as it lasts, and then it goes in the trash if something bad
If
happens.
they break up, if Taylor
It's
and the
done.
man, the football player, break up, you can just throw that hat out.
It'll be gone the same way I discard ex-lovers myself. Just
Nice.
very
Nice,
much.
nice. And I'm sorry to everyone that felt personally attacked by that comment that may be watching. Speaking of everyone that's watching, Department of Corruption Stories is here, Stephen Parker, and we sure appreciate you and all you do for prison and criminal justice reform. And he's reminding me to remind you all to hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're liking the video. Make sure you're sharing the live, commenting, all of those good things. And if you're listening to the podcast wherever you hear your favorite podcasters, please do leave a review for us. We would appreciate that so much. And that just helps our show reach an even broader audience. And we see you guys in this comment. We see Ashley, Amanda, Crystal, Rayanne, Jay from Inside Out Network. You guys are Mama Sean, my mom is here. We're seeing everybody, and I'm just so happy. Judy, man, I can't even keep up. Heather, you guys are on top of it. Man, I can't even keep up with everybody that's here.
There's
Charles,
Roxanne. You saw Roxanne's comment there.
yeah. Gretchen. Charles Pryor says you need to keep the hat because you could maybe get it signed someday.
Do you think Taylor would sign it?
And that's who you would care about, right?
Right.
Do you know the boyfriend's name? Do you
His name
remember?
Travis Kelce, and his
Okay, I
name
didn't
is
remember.
Jason Kelce. So, and my mom was like, "Honey, do we need to find one of the jerseys with his name on it?" She was down. She knew what was happening. We were scouring them all.
I love that so much. I want to say that my auntie Angela is here too, so I'm just really happy to see everybody. Thank y'all for joining us. So
they're ready. They're ready to get to
yes,
it.
they are, and so let's just jump right into it.
They said, "Okay, enough about y'all's holidays. Let's talk about this gypsy."
They
woman.
are. They're tired of talking about me and you. They want to get down to the dirt, right? They want to get down to Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who happened to have gotten out of prison on my birthday. So that was really interesting. She and DDOM678 said or they just looked Gypsy Rose up, and Gypsy convinced her boyfriend to kill her mother. She's served 10 years and he is serving life, which actually she got sentenced to 10 years and she made parole. So she got out a little early, and they're asking why were they not issued the same charges? And we're going to get on into all of that and even more. So,
well, do you want to tell people that are watching that maybe they don't know Gypsy's case, just kind of give a brief summary of the case and where we're at?
Well, so Gypsy Rose Blanchard, she, like I said, this is really one of the largest publicized cases of Munchausen by proxy syndrome. Her mother had that, and very obviously it was a mental deal with her mom, and it caused Gypsy, gosh, Toonche, she grew up with her mom making her to believe she was a cancer patient, that she suffered from other terminal illnesses. She had even shaved Gypsy's head, had her riding around in a wheelchair, a perfectly healthy child, but convincing her that she's not healthy.
Yeah. And making her sick too. She did do
Yes.
a lot of stuff to make her sick. Made her use a feeding tube. She had, I don't remember what she had removed. If it was her salivary glands or something, like she had all these unnecessary surgeries and medications, and just horrific. Just years of medical abuse for attention and sympathy.
So, and that's what Munchausen syndrome is, when you yourself act ill or you make yourself ill for attention or that desire to maybe feel loved or feel something missing inside of you, whatever mentally is wrong with you. But Munchausen by proxy is when you put that on someone else. So perhaps a spouse or a child. We see it a lot with children. Can I ask you, Toonch, were you ever incarcerated with anyone that was there for Munchausen?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Especially at Mountain View. Back in the day, I think Mountain View was primarily just the people with the big crimes and the big times. Now it's got other populations there. But oh yeah. Oh yeah. Often. And I remember there was a pretty high profile case in the area in Central Texas of a woman that, her baby was sick all the time. It like life-threatening, and when she brought the infant to the hospital, several months old, not a complete newborn, but the doctors ran tests. It was an infection in the heart area, in the bloodstream, and something very specific. Well, the bacteria was fecal bacteria, and they're like, there's absolutely no way that bacteria would have gotten here without being, there's just no way. So they set a camera up in the hospital room, and as the baby was, as they were treating, sure enough, she came in with a tissue with fecal matter and was pulling out tubes to wipe it, to continue to make the child. It's shocking, just horrific, right? And I know when she got to the unit, I remembered her face and name from the Waco newspaper. And sweet woman. Well, not Geraldine. What was her? The nurse that was killing the babies. That
Janine Jones.
Janine Jones. Remember, I told you that she and Alexa could tell you she almost blew up the boiler room so that she could be the hero. And I saved the unit. The boiler room almost exploded. Girl, no, which was very much something very similar, so that she could be the hero when she saved the sick children or the dying children or what have you. It's kind of a different form of that illness. But yeah, there were a lot of women there for stuff like that. And it's an illness. It is a straight up mental illness.
Absolutely, it is. And it's Janine Jones, that was years after she had done time with that. But of course, she wasn't getting treated in any way. Yeah. I don't know. The question, I think, and I put it on and it sounded so tacky, but it is the question that people are asking. Like, is Gypsy Rose this keen, cunning kind of villain who seduced her online boyfriend into committing this crime, or is she someone that grew up abused and couldn't figure out how to get out of the situation she was in?
Yeah. Well, and I see Priscilla's comment there. I know Priscilla for many years since we were kids. Yes, girl, I remember Janine Jones in theater class. She was a lot. She was very much a drama queen. Well, Marci, so as she's sick, right? Like you explained, this from the time she was an infant. She had, if y'all haven't seen it on Hulu, it's called The Act. Really, really well done. And there's several documentaries. The documentary on HBO is probably the best, Mommy Dearest Dead or something. And it really chronicles just how intensive that abuse was and for how long, and how her mother manipulated medical staff. Like at every turn, when there was a way that maybe people would find out, her mother would manipulate, and she just felt trapped, and she was a teenager. And I think as she was beginning to understand her circumstances and become a young woman who is ready to do all the things a teenage girl does, and her mother is continuing to suppress that, and to try to keep her a child, right? And to try to keep her dependent on her, she meets this boy online who is very much autistic and mentally ill himself. And to me, it wasn't that she was convincing and manipulating. I think it was expressing where she was at and how she felt and how she wanted to be free. And they decided this was the way to do it and did it. And she was happy to be free, and she's in love, and she's free for the first time in her whole life. And so that can look very, very harsh to people on the outside. But I remember what it was like as a child, as a young teenager in a very desperate situation. Your child brain is desperate, and it's not fully, and I've said this here before, consequences are not the same. Like, I look back and it's like, why did I think this was the solution? I don't know. I can't describe. I don't know why I thought that was the solution, but when it happened, I didn't think it was going to be forever. Like, intellectually I did, but emotionally, no. So I guess I understand that more. But I certainly believe that there was a disparity between their sentencing. That boy shouldn't have got a life sentence like that. He shouldn't.
Yeah,
I don't think she should have got 10 years. Not the level of documented abuse that girl suffered. It's shocking to me that she got that.
Right. Well, besides the young age, besides that, just the mental anguish. I mean, if you just think about the women we were incarcerated with that were victims of spousal abuse that finally snapped and this kind of thing, that's a very real situation. But the mental anguish that baby or that young lady grew up with, that was extreme.
Yeah,
for sure.
and go ahead. You got a video?
I have a video. I have a video, and Roxanne said she shouldn't have got 10 minutes. Lots of people believe that. And the short little search on TikTok and social media, which I want to talk about social media because she has come out strong on social media since she's been home. But it's a really mixed emotion. A lot of people just think that obviously the sentencing differences, they have a hard time with that, but also and especially because I went to prison for a money crime and my sentence was 20 years. So I'm getting a lot of that. Like, why did she only get 10 and you got 20? And, but the circumstances are all different. Right. But let's watch this video.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard has been released from prison 3 years early after serving time for persuading her online boyfriend to murder her mother, who had abused her and forced her to fake serious illness. This story is pretty crazy. Here's a look at what happened. Gypsy Rose's case became famous after reports surfaced that her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, had kept Gypsy prisoner, forcing her to use a wheelchair and a feeding tube and making her pretend for years that she was suffering from illnesses like leukemia and muscular dystrophy. She even had Gypsy convinced that she was sick. Turns out Gypsy was perfectly healthy all along. Her mother had Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a psychological disorder and form of child abuse in which parents seek sympathy through the exaggerated or made-up illnesses of their children. Through this scheme, they were able to receive charitable donations, a trip to Disney World, and even a home. According to Gypsy's attorney, Dee Dee was able to dupe doctors by telling them Gypsy's medical records were lost in Hurricane Katrina, and if they asked too many questions, she'd just find another doctor. She'd also shave Gypsy's head to back up her story. Gypsy testified that she slowly began to realize that she wasn't as sick as her mom said when the abuse became physical. She said her mother beat her and chained her to a bed. Eventually, Gypsy Rose convinced her online boyfriend Nicholas Gottajohn to kill her mother while she hid in the bathroom. At his trial in 2018, Gypsy said, "I wanted to be free of her hold on me. I talked him into it." In 2016, she took a plea deal where she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Just before her release, Gypsy told People magazine that she's ready for freedom.
Well, that sums it up.
Yeah.
I think that was a pretty good summary. And my mom said she agrees. Mama Sean's on here, and I don't know if y'all remember, she used to log in under my dad's account, but I see that she's made her own YouTube, or at least is watching from her own YouTube. Maybe she had it before, but she agrees too. And I think that it's so tricky. This case is so tricky. I'm not justifying. Like, I feel bad for her mother in a way, and I know that sounds crazy because of all that she did to this young lady and to this child, and, but something was wrong with her too.
Mhm.
I mean,
Right.
she was not just this perfectly reasonable
Right.
person trying to, I mean, that's not who she was. She was a mentally ill individual that was seeking attention. I don't, and I don't know. I don't have enough experience with that. I just let's go to one lady. Let me tell you guys about one lady that I was incarcerated with, and she was partially deaf. Um, and she caught a lot of heck from people because, number one, she wasn't fully deaf. So it's like
Mhm.
she could hear you sometimes, but if she didn't hear you, people acted like she was faking it because of her
Mhm.
crime. Her crime was a Munchausen by proxy. Her child did not lose their life, but she was intentionally making them ill. And I just watched her struggle in prisons. She did not have an easy time in prison. She
Mhm.
was not accepted well into, I was on a unit where the deaf ladies were, and they kind of had their own community. She was not accepted really into their community. She didn't have any family support on the outside. Her parents had her child, and she couldn't have any contact with them because that was the victim
Yeah.
of her crime. It was just a whole thing. And I remember thinking, even then, not knowing much about that syndrome, and I still don't know a lot about it, but just watching her suffer the way that she did openly, like you could tell she was not okay. She wasn't
Mhm.
okay. She wasn't, it's internally, she just wasn't okay. And I just
Yeah.
think, gosh, and obviously much sympathy also for her child that she made sick. So it's just really tricky. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that goes to when we talk about nobody is either good, or all bad, right? That is a symptom of our disorder, actually, is to classify. But society as a whole, right? The reason why we develop that as a coping skill in our disorder is because it is so much easier, right, to classify things or as black, white, good or bad, right? There you go. There's nothing in between. Everything's very simple. The world exists very simply, and that's just not the way it is. And I always say when I watch true crime or horror movies, the reason why I'm drawn to those things is because it's where I see myself, and it's where I see the people who have harmed me. Is I see them, and what I see is complex beings and characters and people, right? Like, talking about this woman's prior life, in the docu-series, it kind of shows some of the stuff that she went through with her own mother, right? Like, there's a reason that this woman is like this, right? Now, does that negate the things? Did it negate the stuff that we did acting out of our mental illness? No, but it gives you're able to see some. I posted something recently, and I don't know if you saw it. It's from Bell Hooks, and it's a quote, and I did so just really thinking about the criminal justice system. It's, how do we hold people accountable for wrongdoing while also holding on to their humanity and their capability to transform, right? So even if that person is not ready to say they're guilty, or even if they're not willing to be accountable, right? That's their stuff. But how do we handle that wrongdoing while still seeing them through the lens of having their humanity and their capability to do something different, to change, to grow, to heal. And I think that's it. That's the sweet spot. Like, this lady did something like monstrous, right? Like horrific. We've known many women. I've done violent things, right? But she was more than the horrific abuse that she did to Gypsy, the same way Gypsy and that boy are more than the horrific thing that they did to her. And violence begets violence. So, you know, people say, oh, Gypsy's a manipulative woman. And she did. Hey, at least she has said, hey, I did talk to him about it. And yeah, I did talk him into it eventually, right? Because she's desperate and, you know, all of her reasons. But to me, manipulation, where did she learn her coping skills? She learned them from her mother. That's all she had. Manipulation is a coping skill when needs are not met. You find a way to get them met. So I don't demonize her for that, right? Like, there is all that gray area, Marci, where human behavior lives. And it's taken me 45 years to really understand that area. And when you do that, you begin to have more empathy for everyone as a whole.
I couldn't agree more with that things aren't just black and white, right? I mean, wouldn't it be simple if it were, like, if we could just say, well, these are good, they're good people and there are bad people.
Right.
No, there are people who do good and bad things, but they are all still people. There's so much gray area. And I think that's something that both of us learned being incarcerated on a maximum security unit, not only from our experiences with our own actions, but our experiences getting to know some of the ladies we were incarcerated with. That I remember even one specific, a lady come to my visitation table. She was passing my visitation table on the way to her family visit. And she just said, oh, the girls are here, because my little girls were at visit. And as she went and sat down, you know, my family said, hey, what is she here for? Like, she just doesn't seem like she should be in prison. And she was someone that had come off of death row. You know, she was in prison for a very heinous crime, but there were so many factors around that crime. It was not just this horrible bad person. You couldn't even see that in her, or being around her years later, watching her grow in her faith and all of these things. She was just a complete different person than when that crime was committed. There was a comment here I want to get to for sure. This is such a huge thing for sure. Para-Women Radio says this Gypsy Rose thing has become a pop culture sensation. And it certainly has. That's why we're talking about it tonight. I worry for Gypsy. She's never lived a normal life. And she has vultures circling her, wanting to get the story. She had vultures circling her while she was still incarcerated.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about her being victimized growing up by her mother, and then being victimized in the state. I don't know. I'm not going to presume to know what the Missouri prison system's like, but if it's anything like Texas, for sure she was victimized in there. And then is she now being victimized by paparazzi and people just wanting to get to the story? Gypsy does not seem to be minding the public. She is she's getting into it. And so she's set up on Instagram, TikTok. I don't know if someone is guiding her through that process, or if she just dived in on her own. I don't know the backstory, but I do have one of her TikToks. Let's play it.
Hey everyone, this is Gypsy. I'm finally free. I just want to send a quick video to thank everyone for the massive amount of support that I've been getting on social media. Everyone has been really, really nice and supportive, and I really appreciate that. It's nice to be home. I'm back home in Louisiana, enjoying a beautiful day outside, and I've got a lot of great things happening really soon. I've got my documentary series coming out, The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. I just put out an ebook that I'm super proud of. It's not a rehashing of everything that happened. It's more of my reflection of everything that I've learned and experienced in the last 8.5 years. So my ebook is called Release: Conversations on the Eve of Freedom, which you can pre-order now. And again, just thank you guys for all the support, and keep watching. Okay, bye.
Honey,
So-
she, let me tell you something, you know, I think all the years that she's had to perform, which it was like, you know, she talks about her mother holding her hand and squeezing her or pinching her when she did the wrong thing. Like, she knew how to be in the public and perform. She did it her whole life. I don't think she's shy about being in the public eye whatsoever. And you know, I'm not really all that worried about people taking advantage of her. I think she's savvy and smart and cunning. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in an admirable way, that I think that she's more than capable of navigating outside life and public life, because no, she's never had a normal life, and she never ever will. And that's just her lot. And I think she knows that, and she's going to she's embracing her narrative and her story, and she gets to own it. Nobody else gets to tell it anymore. She gets to. And whether people have a problem with that or they feel like she shouldn't, it doesn't matter. It's hers to tell. And she can tell it the rest of her life because she deserves it and she earned it. So, you know, I think she sounds level and healthy. So let's talk about that, Kay Carey. She was, her parole officer said, you need to get home. You need to get to Louisiana. And, you know, everybody made this big deal out of, oh, she loves Taylor Swift. She's obsessed with her. And she tried to go to the Chiefs game to run into Taylor Swift. I don't believe that. I think they were having a good time, and they thought that they could just go and do stuff and get home when they needed to. And your parole officer, you have a certain amount of time to get to that parole office. In Texas, when you live in Texas, you have the next day to get there. If you live out of state, you know, they're going to give you, if you're transferring, you know, 2 or 3 days to get here. But we're not going to dilly-dally and go to football games and concerts. You're going to get home and you're going to report to this office. That had nothing to do with Taylor Swift or football or anything like that. It was just really a technicality of that, hey, you need to get home and report.
And it didn't have to do with Missouri saying, we want you out.
Right.
We want you to leave.
No.
So the way that works is she would have already had to get that in the works while she was still in prison to get that interstate compact, is what it's called in Texas. I don't know what they call it there, but it's a transfer if you're a person on parole. And that was all set up much ahead of time. So Missouri didn't tell her. Now, her Missouri parole department might have said, girl, you better get to your parole office in Louisiana, or we're going to put you back, because that's what happens. If I had not reported to my parole office, I would be back in prison. You know, that's just the rule. So a lot of people are saying Missouri doesn't want her. Missouri said no, but it doesn't have anything to do with that. Her home is in Louisiana. She has family in Louisiana, and that's where she was going home to. So yeah.
She'll be telling it on The View. Probably so. She's gonna be telling her story everywhere.
Yeah, for sure she is. I just think that she's getting a lot of hate, her and her husband, on social media, and she's handling that well. It's like she was mentally prepared to know that she was not going to come out and be America's sweetheart for everyone, right? And I love the way she's handling herself. She's carrying herself well. She's not, I don't know. It's tricky because she has already been able to heal. There was an amount of healing that has already happened for her. And for us, we're like, oh, this lady, maybe, you know, this lady killed her mom, and she comes home and here she is buying tennis shoes at the mall with her husband. And you know what I mean? It's just not
right.
Again, it's not all of that. But
right. Well, and that's what people see, right? They're like, oh, you're out enjoying the mall or a football game. And it's like, okay, what do you, you and I've had this discussion many times before. When is enough enough? Okay, you're wanting me to beat my chest every single day for the rest of my life. Whip myself like back in the old days when they would punish themselves. The monks at the church would beat themselves, or put them in ashes and just laminate and wail outside the gates of the city. Like, what else do you want people to do? It's been 8 years since the incident happened. She's not just, her mother didn't just die and she went to go buy tennis shoes, right? And a lot of time when people do weird shit like that, Marci, they're in complete total dissociation and denial, right? Like, it's very, I don't think people understand just how rare antisocial / psychopathic behavior is. Most women that we were locked up, I can only count on one hand how many people I really would classify as being sociopathic. But let me also always go back to say that also too is a mental illness. So yeah, people see that and they just want it's like, I'll reflect on this beautiful interview that Mandy did for the Storybook Project. And the reporter in the interview asked her an absolutely outrageous question, which was essentially, don't you, after having done this offense, forfeit your right as a mother to participate in a lovely program with your child? And she handled it like a boss. She said, that decision has passed. We are here to deal with the circumstances. And this is me giving back and doing something positive. And it's like Robert had said, on one of the comments, another great advocate, he was like, this is what we're talking about when we talk about a society that would ask and say that a woman forfeits their right to be a mother because she made a mistake. Like, who does that? Who says something like that? But that is a reflection on our society that, boy, you make a mistake. I don't know where Christian faith and religious faith and mercy and forgiveness go. It's out the door. And it's shocking. And it's hard to deal with when it's channeled towards us. But I think that she handles it very gracefully, probably better than I do.
Yeah, I think she's handling it well too. She's handling the hateful remarks on her social media pages because you're going to get a mix, and you and I both know that. We're going to get lots of support saying thank you for educating us, thank you for sharing your story, and then we're going to get a lot of, look at this thief. Once a thief, always a thief, trying to manipulate everybody on social media. I mean, it's just going to happen. DDOM is asking about a comment that we made about getting victimized in prison, getting further victimized in prison. And what do we mean by that? Do you want to take that, Toonche?
Well, I mean, it comes in many forms, right? The state-sanctioned violence that happens in prison, and what we mean by state-sanctioned is that the state knows about it and does nothing, or they participate in it, whether it's the death penalty or abuse that happens from the guards to the incarcerated people, the violence of being ripped away from your family and your community, racial disparities, like all the things, right? That victimizes the people who are incarcerated and their families. And I don't know how it serves for healing and justice and restorative justice to actual victims of crimes. So it's a myriad of ways. Would you not agree?
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts on it. And just that for certain, the restorative process is not happening. And again, our experiences in Texas prisons, but based on our friends and colleagues that have done time all over the country, it's pretty much everywhere. It's our punitive system is just not restorative. And yes, you're going to suffer some kind of mental, physical, and possibly even sexual abuse while you are incarcerated in this country.
Right. And the systems are designed for that. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, when you have a punitive system like that, and if you have a society that believes in that way of dealing with justice, when abuse happens, right? When the things that happen to the children in the Texas juvenile justice system happen, oh, okay, well, they shouldn't be there. I mean, that's what we hear all the time
Mhm.
when we talk about people dying of the heat or abuse or sexual assault or any of that. Almost the first reaction from society as a whole is, oh, well, you shouldn't be there.
Don't go to prison.
Don't go to prison. And it's like, that is not that should not be the expectation, that when you go to prison, these things happen, and that the expectation is it happens, you shouldn't be there, it's okay. And the truth of the matter, it's not, right? It goes back to that saying of, how do you hold people accountable for wrongdoing while not losing sight of their humanity and their their capacity to transform? How do you hold those things in your hand at the same time? And our society does not do a good job of that whatsoever.
And it's continued on well after a prison sentence. And just like Debbie Green is saying, did people not expect Gypsy Rose Blanchard to buy tennis shoes? I mean, she had just got caught because she's being followed by not only professional paparazzi, but by social media people and just people with the camera that are spotting her, and they're posting her on social media very much like a celebrity. And she's coming out of the mall with her husband, and this I hear, you can hear the whoever's holding the phone video up saying, hey Gypsy, what'd you buy? And she says, oh, I bought tennis shoes, I have real shoes on. And I saw that little clip of that video, and I remember thinking, man, remember putting on your first real pair of shoes when you
Yeah.
got out of prison, and how wonderful they felt and looked. And I could just almost tear up, because that feeling is massive. It speaks to your whole body when you put on something from the free world after have been in state clothes for so long. And that's where I'm going. And then I go to the comment section, and they're just and again, a lot of support.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm so glad you're home. I bet it feels good to have free world stuff. And then that, oh, you're out shopping. I wish your mom could have some shoes. Well,
I
guess
do too. I'm
yes.
sure she does too. Right.
Yes.
And the thing is, hers is even a more unique situation, because, and I didn't mean to get so angry about then, but it's like, it goes back to what Mandy said to that stupid journalist. The decision is done. It's done. I'm not going to keep going over the decision. It was wrong. It was bad. It was done. We are dealing with the aftermath of it. And what can I do to be restorative and positive moving forward? But it's like, Gypsy's is so unique, because it's not just that she was in prison for 8 years. She has been in prison her whole life, to be trapped by the way her mother trapped her and held her hostage in her own body, right? Like, this is the first time this woman has ever been free in her entire life, other than those few days after her mother's death. And quite frankly, it may have looked like she was just really living up and dissociated from it, but it was somewhere she knew she couldn't maintain it, right? And she wasn't well, she was traumatized. First time she's ever been free in her whole life. So of course she's going to be excited, and she has every right to be, after everything she's been through. The person that I hurt the most for in this whole situation is that boy, because
Yes.
it was clear that he was autistic. It was clear that he was also suffering from major depression and had ongoing problems. And they were both vulnerable to each other, right? And they were both teenagers that didn't have attention or sexual attention ever in their lives, and now they found someone, right? And he got punished so much more severely because the death was brutal. And I just don't think that the court really took into account his vulnerability and his mental state. And I think that the tragedy there is that he ended up with a life sentence when he should not have.
And that's really something that our criminal legal system needs reform, is that the courts need to start looking at the whole picture. And I think that someone, and I don't even know if it was in this chat or right before we came on, but someone said, well, if she's out of prison, the Menendez brothers should have been out of prison. And I think
For
that's
sure.
just, we talked about them on another show. And it's just that it was that same thing. Once they were free, they went buck wild, and
Right. Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of what she did just in those few days. The whole situation is sad. There are, just like you said, so many victims in this case. It's not just her. It's not just Gypsy Rose Blanchard, and it's not just her mother, and it's not only this young man who's now serving a life sentence in prison, but it's all of their families have been affected by this. And we know firsthand the ripple effect of an incarcerated person and a violent act, how far that can go.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think it just, also with it affects everybody. It affects everybody. And I just especially feel for her as a teenager, feeling desperate, and for him, and, working at an organization also that about disabilities, is that, often people with autism are demonized, and they're thought of in the most monstrous ways that people with mental illness are, and not understanding their condition, and not understanding the way their mind works, and to be demonized for it is just really heartbreaking. And it shows how much more work we have to do to educate people about mental illness, autism, disabilities, because that's the theme of this, right? Is mental health, all of it. And I don't know what's happening to us as a society, especially here, is our mental health is collapsing. And I don't know if people understand how serious it is.
Yeah, as an entire society and communities, it's really, we're failing each other in our own communities, and things that could have been even prevented. I just think so many people could not end up in prison had the communities stepped up and had resources for those folks. And I don't know, just the whole thing. The whole thing is, Cheyenne says they don't care about mental health in TDCJ. They barely care about it in the legal system prior to getting incarcerated. They barely care about that. In Texas, they don't care. Let's see. Eric says in Texas, they don't care about autistic people. I've seen others extort them and have fought for them. Golly, we have a good question here.
Yeah.
What would you like to see? Part of the reason for prison and jails are to keep civil society safe, especially from violent people. In this case, Miss Blanchard and former boyfriend crossed a line and killed. And D-Dom coming in hot with the good questions
with good
tonight.
questions.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah, go for it, Toonche.
Well, I mean, what would we like to see? We would like to see a society that depends and utilizes other resources to balance justice, what we call restorative justice, right? So I will tell you, and I'm sure Marci would very much agree, is that incarceration did nothing to restore me. It did nothing to restore Marci, right? And after about 5 years, the effect of prison, other than the continued harm that it does to me and Marci and our families, that's it. Right? Like, you assimilate to the culture, you assimilate to that world, and you're always longing to be free, and you do have this trauma of separation. But the effect that society thinks that it has is gone. So then it becomes a question, well, is it fair that this person is living their life and free while someone is deceased and gone and they don't have another chance? Well, what would be more restorative? To lock this person away without any care, without any concern, again, not respecting their humanity and their capacity to transform, right? Because our current system does not nurture that. So it is not acknowledging that. It is punishment, and that's that. You're thrown away. You killed this person, so you're thrown away now. And there is no hope for restoration. And some people will say that's justice because it feels balanced. But what does the harm from that? Violence begets violence, and the things that happen while a person's incarcerated. So if we have, right, we need the preventative things, right? Because we can sit here and talk about all the ways that this family could have been helped, tracing back generations, right? Her mother was mentally ill from the abuse that she suffered, all of that, right? But what does that do when something happens, right? Well, there's different ways that secure settings, I want y'all to hear this, secure settings for people that are a harm to themselves and to others does not have to be a carceral system. And so when you look at other settings for justice, especially people like to point to European nations, which just makes Texans extremely angry. Oh, you're coddling criminals. Well, you see that their recidivism is almost nothing, right? Because they are placing people in secure settings that honor their dignity and their humanity, no matter what they've done, right? You restore the person so they go back into society, because almost everybody will, right? But that doesn't feel good, to that itch, that burn to punish and retribution. And it overall does not heal, and it doesn't restore. So I just wanted to say that is that when we're talking about secure, safe settings, we're talking about systems that can look very, very different and function very different than carceral settings, which are prisons and jails.
It's amazing what can happen when you give someone a space that they can be nurtured in, and a space worthy of restoration, and treat them like humans, how that but that lowers the crime rate in those areas where that's happening. Norway is one. The crime rates are very low. Our punitive system, it does not keep our communities safe. It has proven to fail to do that. Our recidivism rate is the highest in the world, the highest of any other democratic country. The United States has the highest recidivism rate. So, I mean, we're failing. It's not working. What we're doing isn't working, so, and I just want to counter just one thing, is that you said violent people. And I think that there are angry people that can commit violent acts. And there are also just people that aren't even angry, that are hurt or victims or mental illnesses, that commit violent acts. But I met very few violent people, someone that I would say, oh, she's a violent person. I met lots of people that committed violent acts, and none of them, I've said it before, the ladies that I did time with that had a murder charge, there were lots of them that I would invite home to my family before I would invite someone that was there for a short sentence and kind of still in that. I mean, it just, that's just what it was, right?
Right. Because people are neither good or all bad. And it's just, especially when people are young too, Marci, like this guy that did this with Gypsy, there is even a stronger case for restoration and to be able to salvage something that's left of their life. Thank God for the mercy in my life from the sentences that I received, right? Because I could be away for the rest of my life. I would make like my dad always told me, you got to live where you're at, baby. So you make the best of where you're at. And I always tried to do that. But it's just, it goes back to something I told a DA at a conference. She goes, what if you could say what I could take away from this conference? It was the Judicial Commission on Mental Health. What is the one thing as a system impacted person you'd want me to take away? And I said that we are not our offense, that we are not that moment. We are not that act. My life is not defined by my mistakes, by my ways that I've responded with violence, because that's what was taught to me, right? I'm not a violent person. I'm not a bad person. I'm not soulless like the psychiatrist told me when I was 15. How dare you? I am capable of transforming. Those people in your court are more than that horrific thing that they did. And if you can hold on to that humanity and believe in their capability to change and put them somewhere safe, not somewhere that's going to continue to re-traumatize and reinforce this violence in them, you will have a different outcome. And she said, okay. And I said, I do hope that you remember that no matter how horrific it is. And I that can even be hard for us that have been through it, because I know as women, when I see men do violence towards women, I know what my impulse is sometimes. Oh boy. But that has been what was taught to me, is to respond with violence, and it's just an ever, oh, Marci, it's just a journey every single day to try to change that and confront that even in myself.
Toonche, I couldn't have said that better. And that was really beautiful. Definitely your past does not define you, like Debbie said. And everyone is capable, I think, of restoration, of change. And I think that we do have to look through our criminal legal system. Imagine if we looked through it through that lens of looking at people and seeing people and seeing humanity, instead of it's kind of easier to explain when something awful happens to put this kind of villain mask on someone, and that gives it an excuse, and it makes it easy for our minds to process what happened, but that's just not factual. So
right.
Yeah, Stephen Parker said, Jennifer Toone, spitting the facts tonight. Toonche,
honey, I try. It's this hat, sure. Baby. It brings me power. It brings me courage.
Guys, we have had such a great show. I see you all in the chat. Y'all have been incredible. You're the reason we do this podcast, is to hang out with y'all. It is absolutely our favorite part of the week. We appreciate all the support that you guys gave us in 2023. And we look forward to seeing our community grow even larger in 2024. We appreciate you. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button and all that good stuff. Send comment, share, all that good stuff helps us more than you know. Toonche, any final thoughts?
Well, if you live in Texas, make sure you go to the Lioness website to check out me and Marci's advocacy group. And also on there, it says Sunset Review, our prison system and parole system and medical care for those incarcerated in Texas prison is under what's called Sunset Review. That is a state oversight that reviews state agencies to make sure they're running efficiently, and you can provide public comments. So please look at that to learn how to do so, okay? Because you can't complain if you're not going to participate. So
that's right. That's right, Texas. We got to tell them what Texas prisons need. So I put our Linus website there at the bottom. If you're listening, you can reach us at www.LIONSS.org, and that's for Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. But you can also find those links on Toonche's and I, both of our social media platforms, any of them. Look us up. You can find us there. And we really do appreciate you all so much. We will see you guys next week. Thank y'all for hanging out with us on the Recyard Women's Prison Podcast with Marci Marie and Toonche. Make sure and subscribe to our channel